Hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are going to look at what I call an anticipatory set, kind of getting us ready to read and analyze Maya Angelou's poem Bump to Bump. And the lesson target is that students will explore themes of struggle, resilience, and the quiet strength that builds toward change. I'm sure there are a bunch of standards that are covered in this, but for sure, I want to be looking at kind of central ideas or themes, which is reading literature standard 2, and then also analyzing a particular viewpoint, analyzing cultural experience in a work of literature. And this is especially relevant when we analyze a poet, or in the first example, a singer, songwriter. And then, how does their identity or their experience influence a poem or a song? Songs are or can be poetry. So I would say for the most part, songs can be poetry. And this is kind of a review, but we are in the portion of Unit 3 that I have titled The Weight We Carry. So we went from willful ignorance to the weight we carry. We all carry weight. Some is visible, some is hidden. And for many, this weight comes from generations before us, meaning there are histories of struggle, of having to stay silent, of survival that can be passed down like an inheritance. And in this unit, The Weight We Carry, well, this portion of Unit 3 anyway, we'll explore the burdens that people bear. And sometimes these burdens look like poverty. Sometimes they look like racism. Sometimes they look like family wounds. Sometimes it's a collective trauma. Not always the easiest to talk about, but collective trauma can include things like incest and sexual abuse and emotional abuse, things like that. Not always the prettiest side of human nature, right? But we also know it's real. Obviously, we also inherit good things, right? So I don't want to forget about that either. But right now we're kind of talking about this weight, right? This thing that we carry on our shoulders, on our backs, metaphorically. So through literature, we're going to be examining how these burdens impact our identities, our choices, and then hopefully our resilience to some of these burdens that we carry. And many of you know this weight personally. I would imagine all of us carry something. If your life is all sunshine and rainbows, great. I love that for you. But many of us carry these burdens. So this unit is going to be a space where we can name it, we can understand it, we can see how others have carried it to this weight. And we're going to be touching on generational burdens, on historical trauma and survival in authors, singers, poets, so that we can kind of see, we can use these as sort of a window, as well as a mirror. Like we can see ourselves in it, but then we can also see others struggle, because that just makes us decent human beings when we study the struggles of others. So the first thing I'm going to be asking you to do is I've given you a set of slides, and there's something that I've titled Metaphor Activity. If you remember, a metaphor is different from a simile in that it says it is this, right? So this is your backpack instead of it's like a backpack, which would be a simile. A metaphor is this thing is standing for something. It's symbolizing something, in this case, a backpack. In my backpack, I carry the things people have passed down to me, both good and bad. Things such as, and I've just listed an example here, the good things that, people have passed down to me are being funny as heck, our musical talents, and a love of animals. The not so good things that have been passed down to me, toxic relationships, addiction, bad credit. This is going to look different from you, different for you, I should say. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how to complete that. And so I've left you these blank templates on your set of slides. And then the next slide is going to say the things in my backpack that, this should say weigh me down, not weight me down. I'll change that when I give you your copy. So the things, if you remember back here, the things people have passed down to me over here on the right, we've got to continue on with answering this. You can't take it off. Inside are things people pass down to you, both good and bad. Then it says, what's in your backpack? So we answered that on the last slide. What weighs you down? That's where you're going to answer here. And then what keeps on going, what keeps you going is on the next slide. So the things in my backpack that weigh me down are, and you're going to list those. The things that keep me going, or what keeps me going, is. So I know, especially at your age, the things that kept me going, one of the major things, and she's not a thing, she's a person, but someone who always kept me going was my little sister. I always made sure to be very, very protective of her, and always wanted to make sure that I was there for her as her big sister. And she really just made me want to have a better life for both of us. So that would probably be something I'd put under what keeps me going. For some people, it might be, the idea that I'm going to get out from under this, that I'm going to create my own life. I'm going to further my schooling. I'm going to get, a great job so that I can break, generational poverty, or, whatever the case might be in your instance. All right. And then I'm going to see if this works. I'm not sure. I've never watched a video while recording a video in Loom. So let's see how this goes. We are going to watch a performance by Tracy Chapman. This is her song Talking About a Revolution. And I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but if you haven't, I hope you really enjoy it. If you have heard it before, enjoy watching / listening to it again. All right. Not exactly sure if that's going to work, but I'm just going to keep on keeping on here. And what I'd like you to do is to watch that performance a few times to really get it. And you can either do that through the link that I'm going to provide for you in the slides. You can just go to YouTube and, type in Talking About a Revolution, Tracy Chapman, and watch it that way. But I really want you to watch the performance a few times to really get it, as well as looking at the lyrics. I always find it helpful to read the lyrics while I'm listening to the performance. So I really want you to do that. And I've provided that for you in your slides as well. And then what I want you to do in the another slide that I've given you is that I want you to answer this question. What kinds of people or situations is she singing about? And if you need to, again, go back, listen to her sing the song, look at the lyrics, and answer this question. What kinds of people or situations is she singing about? And that could be a wide variety of answers that, I might see from y'all. I would like to talk about the tone of the song because I think it's very, very important. And tone is something that when I ask students what the tone of a poem is, or what the tone of a story is, or in this case, a song, sometimes students don't really know what I mean. And oftentimes mood and tone get interchanged. And that's not always correct. They are similar. They do have similar qualities, but tone is like, I always use the example of if I came home past curfew, what was the tone of my parents' voice? So the mood in the house might be a certain thing, right? When I come home past curfew, but what is the tone in my parents' voice? So in this song, if you notice how the song begins in a hush, and she even uses the word whisper and whispers that line, oh, wait, no. I was just going to say talking about a revolution. She says, and it sounds like a whisper, right? She actually whispers that line. So it starts in a hush, and that mirrors how social change always, or at least mostly always, begins with a hush. It rarely starts with a scream and a yell. It usually starts quietly from the margins and doesn't end up in the headlines until much later when it's gained steam. And the older I get, I mean, I know you're pretty young, I'm speaking to you in a very young audience, but I think you'll notice through the years, and you probably already have noticed certain social change, but you'll start to notice that it picks up speed and um, starts with a whisper, but ends up being a scream, right? The singer speaker is reflective. She is carrying this tone of hope, and it's a very measured hope. She has experienced some disappointment. We can tell that. We can tell that she has lived through some oppression based on these lyrics. And we can tell that the speaker has waited and watched. She knows a change is coming. She also, though, shows a calm defiance. It isn't an in-your-face defiance. If it was an in-your-face defiance, people would be turned off. People don't want you or anyone running up to them screaming in their face about a message. It's a certain way to close people off from hearing what you have to say. Being calm and having a credible message is a better way to get people to listen to what you have to say. And then notice how, especially in one of the lines, she is not asking for change. She's not saying, "Hey y'all, can we have a change here? Can we have a revolution?" No, she's saying that change is inevitable. Especially the line, "Finally the tables are starting to turn." Ooh, and you'll notice the song kind of picks up strength and speed during that part too. And then also part of the tone is that there's this inner strength that is reflected in the tone, and brought forth by the singer. But people who have been ignored, people who have been underestimated, they have endurance. If we look at the most oppressed peoples throughout history, most are have endured a lot and are resilient. And so I would say, in a nutshell, the tone of this song is quietly defiant, patient yet powerful, and grounded in hope. If you are someone, especially if you are someone who is who she's talking about here, or, for the most part, if you have been crying, at the Salvation Army or Goodwill or whatever, like the doorsteps of places that either offer goods for free or for a reduced price. If you have wasted time in unemployment lines, if you have had to, apply for welfare or government assistance, or your family has, or people have, you especially are going to understand where this endurance comes from, right? And then how do we make sure that we're resilient is always a good question too. And the singer here, the songwriter says, you better run. You better run, 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 run. Because guess what? The tables are starting to turn. Who she's talking to, I'm going to leave that up to you. When she's saying you better run, 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 does she mean the people who are rising up, the poor people? Or does she mean the people who have been the oppressors? Who is she saying that to? I'm going to let you kind of decide that. I don't know. I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm gonna refrain. I'm gonna see what you think about that. Who do you think she's saying you better run, 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 run? Who is that about? Who is that directed toward? All right. And one of the reasons I am using this song, this Tracy Chapman song, in this anticipatory set is because it's a great companion, in my opinion, to Maya Angelou's poem that we're going to be studying called Bump to Bump. It makes a great poem because both poems express resilience. They both have historical weight of these people who have been oppressed and have endured, right? This quiet endurance. Um, Not always quiet, but a lot of it has been historically quiet over decades, if not centuries. And there's all kinds of oppressed people, right? There's different types of oppression, racial, socioeconomic, gender. I mean, LGBTQ. So many oppressed groups throughout history that I feel can really get a lift through this song, and then also Maya Angelou's poem. Most of her poetry, but especially Bump to Bump. Okay, so also they both have this rhythm and repetition to them, and so I kind of want us to analyze both of these in tandem. All right. So, like Tracy Chapman, Maya Angelou gives voice to those who carry generations of struggle, not always loudly, but always powerfully. In Bump to Bump, poet Maya Angelou uses rhythm and repetition to show us that long before revolutions are televised or become mainstream, first they have to go through a process of being lived. Revolutions are felt, they are inherited, and eventually the oppressed rise up. Eventually, they get to the point where they've just had enough. And both artists, both Tracy Chapman and Maya Angelou, are talking about movements that start in the quiet moments of endurance. And so next we're going to be looking at how Angelou crafts that message in her poem. Before I do that, I want to embed a password here. This just shows me that you have watched the video and have paid attention, and this way I can know that you, like I said, watched the video. And I know putting it right at the end means people have been just fast forwarding all the way to the end. So let's see, what do I want to use for the password? I'm going to say all caps and all caps revolution. And I don't think that's the best font. So let's find better font. All right, so all caps revolution is going to be the password. So before you read the poem Bump to Bump by Maya Angelou, I want to ask you this question. Like, did you know that a poem can have a sound to it? I said that songs are poetry, right? And they obviously have a rhythm to it because it's a song, right? It's musical. But poems without any musical interludes or musical tracks, right, can be rhythmic. So Maya Angelou's poem Bump to Bump is a poem that has sound and rhythm built into it. It doesn't have a soundtrack, but it definitely has rhythm and sound in the sound. And we can hear this poem as much as we can see it. So we can see it on the page, and you're going to hear it too because I'm going to read it aloud to you, and I would absolutely love it if you read it aloud to yourself as well. Poetry is meant to be spoken, not just read. I don't know if you remember the video that I had you watch, the PBS Masters video about Maya Angelou, but that is how she began speaking because she didn't speak for a good chunk of her childhood due to a sexual assault. And she luckily had this very kind neighbor lady who read poetry to her. But one day she pointed at Maya and she said, "You are going to speak poetry. That is the only way you're going to be able to appreciate poetry is speaking it." And so Maya went and hid underneath a porch or something, and read and read and read aloud until she actually began speaking aloud too. All right. So just like in Tracy Chapman's song, there is a repetition of certain phrases in Maya Angelou's poem, and there's a definite rhythm as well. And I'm going to end here. I'm at about 23 minutes. And the next time we meet, I will read the poem Bump to Bump, and we will start analyzing it. Thank you for being here.